Prabhuji, for
Oh,
his woman in the next life.
okay, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's, भजहो रे मन श्रीनंदन भय चरण भजहु रे मन श्रीनंदन भय चरण दुर्लभं जन्म सत्संगे दुर्लभं जन्म सत्संगे तरहु भव संतुष्टि तरहु रे भव सिंधुरे भजहु रे भज भजहु हरि कामं जीवन सत्सलम भजहु हरि भजहु रे श्रीरंगन अभय चरण गोविंद अभय चरण भजहु श्रीरंगन अभय चरण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चना गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रहे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमो ब्राह्मण्याय देवाय गौब्राह्मणाहिताय च जगद्हिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामी निति नामिने। Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Makum karati vachalam pangum langayate girim yatrapatmahum vande shikram karinam Ishwaram Paramananda Madhavam Om Apavitro Pavitro Va Sarvavastam Gato Piva Yat Smaret Pundarikaksham Sadhyabhyam Taram Suchet Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, Dandot Pradam. How is everyone doing?
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Dandot Pranam.
Dandot Pradam Mataji.
Krishna Dandot Pranam Prabhuji, doing good Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Shilpa Mataji is over. Chamya Mataji. Hare Krishna, Chamya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna
Kamya.
Prabhu Dandot Pranam.
Sorry, Mataji. Am I spelling your name right, Mataji? Is it Chamya?
No. It's Kamya.
Kamya. Oh, sorry, Mataji. Sorry.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Swapna Mataji. Hare Krishna, Deepa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Saraswati Mataji. Long time.
Hare
Krishna
Prabhuji Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dhanatu.
Hare Krishna, Lilananda Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Lavesh Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Madhavi Mataji. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Raju Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Santosh Aicha Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Satyadev Prabhu. I think it's done.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandot Pranam.
Yeah, that does Pranam Raju Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandot Pranam.
Dandat Pranam Mataji. Hare Krishna, Vanilla Mataji. Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna Prabhu Dandot Pranam.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining this call, this Bhagavatam session. One more Saturday, one more Bhagavatam session, one more continuation to the same chapter. I think it's been going on, and I think I am going to make a full stop today for this chapter, and next chapter I think it would be taken care by our Giriraj Prabhu. So yeah. So the agenda of our, I hope everyone is able to see my screen, Prabhuji and Mataji's. Everyone
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, so in the agenda of this session, I think already it is in continuation to the last session. What Lavesh Prabhu has taken, I think Lavesh Prabhu has taken maximum load of maximum shlokas covering in the last session, and he has minimized my job and left only 15 shlokas for today for me to complete the 28th chapter of 4th canto about Puranjana and Vaidharvi, who are the same personalities coming in the next life. So yeah, so quickly we will have a recap of the 28th chapter, the first 50 shlokas, whatever were discussed by Lavesh Prabhu. We'll just have a quick recap of that part. And mainly this today's 15 shlokas, primarily the discussion happens between the Brahman and Queen Vaidharvi, reminding her of her actual position. Can anyone tell me who is that Brahman? Can anyone guess who is that Brahman?
Super Soul Prabhuji.
Yes, Super Soul. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Devamati. Yeah. So in this section of 15 shlokas, where we are going to, as we mentioned, Puranjana becomes a princess in next life. So already in this section of 5, where as per the previous section, Vaidharvi laments on her husband's funeral pyre of him leaving her. So at that juncture, that's when the Brahmin come and discusses some matters, and that particular section of the discussion happening between the Brahmin and the Queen Vedarbi is divided again into I have divided that into 5 sections. Shloka 51 to 53, he talks about arrival, his friend, and leaving him. Shloka 54 to 58, we are going to talk about 2 swans wandering in the material world. What are those swans referring to? And Shloka 59 to 60, entanglement and false identities, what we create once we are situated in the material world. And Shloka 61 to 63, Maya and quality. Shloka 61 to 63, what is Maya and what is qualitative oneness and difference, what he talks about. He actually describes about the soul and super soul, the difference. And Shloka 64 to 65, the revival. So it's kind of a quick summary on why this story. I mean, we see a lot of movies with lot of flashbacks. You might have seen movies with a flashback has another flashback, another flashback. So actually, all this discussion about the story of Puranjana is actually happening between 2 personalities. Who are they?
Narad Muni
Yeah,
and
Narada Muni and
Narad Muni,
Prachina Barhi.
Puranjana. Puranjana and Narad Muni.
no.
Prachina Barhi.
Prachina Barhi and Narad Muni.
Yes, that's right. So it's not Puranjana and Narada, it is Narada and Prachin Bari.
Prachina Barhi.
So that's when Narada speaks to Prachin Barhi and tells the story of Puranjana, and in the next life Puranjana becomes Vaidarbi. So this is the quick recap where Puranjana's death, method of giving the gross body. So that's what it happens in generally when you are in a middle consciousness, how a person dies, or how a person leaves the body is mentioned in this section, recap section, where it was mentioned by a couple of our devotees. So second one, and some second, third, fourth section contains Puranjana becomes a princess in the Princess Vaidarbi in the next life. Can anyone say why he becomes Princess Vaidarbi? Puranjana becoming a princess. Why?
Yeah.
Why
Because he likes the beauty.
Yeah, Saraswati Mataji, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Puranjana is always thinking of his wife before his death.
Yes.
So
You are,
he becomes princess.
yes, you are absolutely right, Mataji. Actually, this particular aspect, Vedas are such a wonderful thing to happen to mankind. Some things which can't be told right up front on the face are being told by Vedas, whether you like it or not like it. That's a different aspect. But whether you like it or not, you have to what consciousness you live, with whose consciousness you live, and with whose memories you live. Similarly, you are going to in the same form. It's been already mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also, with whatever consciousness or with whatever vision you are going to leave your body at the time of death. With the same consciousness, you are going to regain the same body. So similarly, he was thinking or loving his wife so much, and with her consciousness, he died, and he took the birth of a lady or a princess Vaidarbi next life. So it's an eye opener to I know this particular chapter of Puranjana. Generally, when I heard from a lot of senior devotees that for any newcomer or any newcomer in Krishna consciousness, it's not advisable to talk about Puranjana story on the very first day. There's every possibility that he might even not appear near any KC Krishna conscious satsang happening. So it's not recommended for the newcomers, this particular chapter of Puranjana. But these are the harsh truths which, whether you accept it or not accept it, these are the harsh truths what we see in our daily life also. We loving our people as a responsibility, we can do it, but having a too much attachment is not good. It's not only about wife or kids, but also in our daily community, if you see our residential communities, people, especially the retired couples, I see most often where their kids are completely settled and they are staying abroad, and they have a wonderful dog. They are trying to have a pet dog, taking care of it, loving it, lot of things. They feel a lot when the Deepavali crackers are sorry, when Deepavali crackers are happening, they are very much concerned. How come you can be so much insensible towards animals? Why you are doing this and all? They do a lot of things, but the same people who are worried about the dogs or the pet animals who they are trying to take care of, they are not worried to eat non-veg or kill other animals for their own sense enjoyment. So it's very silly thing, but it's a harsh truth. Whether you accept it or not, having a development, we need to be very cautious to have a performing duties as a responsibility, and having a too much attachment to anyone. I mean, I know it might be sounding very harsh, but that's absolute truth. So that's what is being even conveyed in this section. And it's not only applicable not only in the Vedas or the other yugas, but also it is applicable, very much applicable in this Kali Yuga as well. That's what we need to understand, and it's very, very important point. And the stories also in the end of this in the end of this session, it's explained in the purports by His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Srila Prabhupada wonderfully, more than especially in this forum of the devotees who are currently there in our Thal. I mean, the main points stressed in this particular section is the same thing what we have repeatedly discussing, that we are soul and we are having a super soul, and we need to prioritize our spiritual life, and what is the importance of spiritual master, and how we need to behave when spiritual master leaves from the current material world. But despite leaving, he never leaves and he ever stays in the form of Vani. So that's the important stress. But one important aspect which I liked after going through all the 15 shlokas is one thing which I will discuss in the coming shlokas or coming sections. So we need to understand that. So third section, again, it was discussed as Malay Dwaja and Vaidarbi retired to the forest. Who is Malay Dwaja? Can you tell me who is Malay Dwaja?
Vaidarbi's husband.
Whose husband? Vaidarbi's husband. Yeah, that's right. So in this life, in the next life, when Puranjana takes a life takes a woman form in the form of Vaidarbi, and then she marries Malaya Dwaja, who was a very spiritually elevated king. Then in the same recap, we see instructions for a disciple from a Vaidarbi's example. So we see instructions for Vaidarbi, such that when how a devoted disciple would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute his mission. To execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. That's one hell of an austerity which disciple is expected to do when he's accepting someone as a spiritual master. So that's the instructions for a disciple from Vaidarbi's example. That was the last section what we closed from in the last week. Now coming to this section, today's section, we are going to talk about the following items. Let me try to hide this. I'm just trying to. That's okay. So yeah. So this section contains arrival. So then when she laments on the demise of of her husband Malayadwaja leaving to the ultimate abode, she Vaidarbi cries a lot, and that is the juncture where the Brahman comes. The Brahman comes, and we need to learn from this particular aspect. I have seen a lot of sections, but I think it would be better. Let me, yeah. So there are a total 3 shlokas in this particular section where, main highlighted things from these 3 shlokas basically are covered with the arrival of that Brahmana. And he is stressing the need that I am your friend and you have left me. I'm wanting you to be there. Let me try to, sorry. Yeah, I think it's on mute only. Yeah. So the main point, what they stress here is about his resolution. Now let me open the Veda base. I wanted. I have only, in each subsections what you see. For example, in this subsection we have 3 shlokas. I have highlighted the important shloka among the 3 shloka, but it doesn't mean that the other shlokas are not important. They are indeed important, but let me. Yeah, so here in the 51st shloka, the translation says, "My dear king, one Brahmana who was an old friend of King Puranjana came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words." Sweet words. Can someone read the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, please, Giraj Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The appearance of an old friend in the form of a Brahmana is very significant. In his Paramatma feature, Krishna is the old friend of everyone. According to Vedic injunction, Krishna is sitting with the living entity side by side. According to the Shruti mantra, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya, the Lord is sitting within the heart of every living entity as Rut, the best friend. The Lord is always eager to have the living entity come home back to Godhead. Sitting with the living entity as witness, the Lord gives him all chances to enjoy himself materially, but whenever there is an opportunity, the Lord gives good counsel and advises the living entity to abandon trying to become happy through material adjustment and instead turn his face toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender unto him. When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of the spiritual master. This is technically called Vani Seva. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura states in his Bhagavad Gita commentary on the verse Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana BG 2.41 that one should serve the words of the spiritual master. The disciple must stick to whatever the spiritual master orders. Simply by following on that line, one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Should I continue, Prabhu?
Please, Prabhuji, please continue, Prabhuji.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, appeared before the queen as Brahmana, but why didn't he appear in his original form as Sri Krishna? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura remarks that unless one is very highly elevated in loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot see him as he is. Nonetheless, if one sticks to the principles enunciated by the spiritual master, somehow or other he is in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Lord is in the heart, he can advise a sincere disciple from within. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. In conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Vani or Vapu. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavana, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. Sri Bilomangal Thakur has therefore said, Bhakti tiratara bhagavan yad syad daivena na prahalati na phalati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmamruta kamagataya samaya pratikshaha. If I am engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. And as far as liberation is concerned, I think that liberation stands at my door with folded hands, waiting to serve me. And all material convenience of dharma, religiosity, artha, economic development, kama, sense gratification, stand with her. Krishna Karna Amrita 107. This was Krishna Karna Amrita 107. It is very advanced in devotional service. You will have no defeat. He not only sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but attains liberation.
Giraj Prabhu, you are disconnected. Okay.
The internet fluctuated.
I was just doubting whether it is problem from my end or your end. Prabhuji and Mataji, am I audible? Or Giraj Prabhu is audible? Who is audible?
You are audible now, Prabhuji, but it was going back and forth. Yeah, we can hear him too.
Okay. Fine. Anyway, let me complete. If one engages in the service of the spiritual master, he not only sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but attains liberation. As far as material conveniences are concerned, they automatically come, just as the maid servants of a queen follow the queen wherever she goes. Liberation is no problem for the pure devotee, and all material conveniences are simply awaiting him at all stages. Prabhuji and Matajis, here is the important point, which was a eye-opener for me, especially for the in all the 15 shlokas what we have. This particular aspect, seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction. Meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of a spiritual master. Yeah. This particular aspect is something we need to contemplate, Prabhuji and Matajis. I think this is a unique point what at least I have taken. Otherwise, all other points at the devotees who are there, part of this platform, they know all the items which we are going to discuss. But this is the point where it makes a lot of sense, Prabhuji and Matajis, when people or devotees who are intended to see, of course, everyone wants to see Krishna, they love to see Krishna, but in his personal form, so we can see or meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of a spiritual master. So this is something to contemplate. When I say contemplate, it's not only that the Diksha Guru is giving a initiation to the devotees and we need to hear his instruction. It might be applicable to the lower level also. For example, we can introspect that at least the devotees who are there in this forum, you might be having an image of a Siksha Guru. Your Siksha Guru. You might be having an image of your Siksha Guru. But when now what you can contemplate is how much time you have taken to not only externally say that he or she is my Siksha Guru, but how much time you have taken. Initial meeting is something, but how much time or how much period you have come to a conclusion that one personality is my Siksha Guru. Because once you come to that conclusion of he or she is my Siksha Guru, there is a lot of contemplation might have happened for fixing on someone as a Siksha Guru. I don't want to, Prabhujis and Matajis, I don't want to undermine spiritual master in the sense Diksha Guru, but I'm just trying to highlight this. I'm just trying to break this up before we aspire for initiation or before we look for an initiation. Our main contact is our Shiksha Guru. Now, how much time meeting is one point. How much time we have taken to fix on someone saying that he or she is my Siksha Guru. Unfortunately, there are a lot of devotees in KC who are not fixed up yet to come to a one Shiksha Guru. Being part of so many years, being in KC for so many years, high level externally saying yes, there are a lot of Siksha Gurus. But internally there should be even a unique personality or a unique Shiksha Guru also to us, towards whom we look into or towards whom we take guidance from. And once you fix on the Shiksha Guru also, to what extent are you able to follow his or her instructions? This is something to really contemplate, Prabhujis and Matajis. And even if you see in our daily life, those devotees who are, well, surely you might have seen a lot of devotees with more conviction than at least some of us, and how they approach a problem or how they approach a work or how they do any KC related activity. They see, when you can see the motivation there. When this particular statement is really a very strong statement, meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of a spiritual master. When the instruction of a spiritual master, there, when we execute that instruction, that experience of meeting a Supreme Personality can be obtained. I think that's the point what he is trying to stress. So Prabhujis and Matajis, to experience, that's what Srila Prabhupada is trying to stress out. There is no need to go to Vrindavan, see from the bushes and look for Krishna. Even you can see Krishna in the execution of the orders of your spiritual master. So that's the point what he was trying to stress here. Okay. So this is about the first sloka. And second sloka, again, Brahmana inquires further. The Brahmana inquires as follows: who are you? Who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? So he is asking Vaidarbi, who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you are lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. We need to understand, Prabhuji and Mataji, this particular story to make general public understand. The Vedas or the great Acharyas have given in a story form such that people, a normal public, can understand those things. That's the only intention of making it in a story form. Okay. So I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. Yeah. Can someone read this purport?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
When a person's relative dies, renunciation is automatically visible. Consultation with the super soul seated within everyone's heart is possible only when one is completely free from the contamination of the material attachment. One who is sincere and pure gets an opportunity to consult with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature, sitting within everyone's heart. The Paramatma is always the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. He comes before one externally as the instructor and initiator spiritual master. The Lord can reside within the heart, and he can also come out before a person and give him instructions. Thus, the spiritual master is not different from the super soul sitting within the heart. An uncontaminated soul or living entity can get a chance to meet the Paramatma face to face, just as one gets a chance to consult with the Paramatma within his heart. One also gets a chance to see him actually situated before him. Then one can take instructions from the super soul directly. This is the duty of a pure devotee, to see the bona fide spiritual master and consult with the super soul within the heart. When the Brahmana asked the woman who the man lying on the floor was, she answered that he was her spiritual master, and that she was perplexed about what to do in his absence. At such a time, the super soul immediately appears, provided the devotee is purified in heart by following the directions of the spiritual master. A sincere devotee who follows the instructions of the spiritual master certainly gets direct instructions from his heart from the super soul. Thus, a sincere devotee is always helped directly or indirectly by the spiritual master and the super soul. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Guru Krishna Prasade Paye Bhakti Lata Vish. If the devotee serves his spiritual master sincerely, Krishna automatically becomes pleased. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada. By satisfying the spiritual master, one automatically satisfies Krishna. Thus, the devotee becomes enriched by both the spiritual master and Krishna. The super soul is eternally the friend of the living entity and always remains within him. The super soul has always been ready to help the living entity even before the creation of this material world. It is therefore stated here, Yenagre Vichattara. The word agre means before the creation. Thus, the super soul has accompanied the living entity since before the creation.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji and Mataji, we need to understand this. Generally, a sense of renunciation, unfortunately, in our society, only comes when someone in a family dies or leaves the body. That is generally it happens. And I think that is the only time usually people think, why I am taking birth? Why is death happening? Why do bad things happen to good people? That's the only juncture when I think we seriously think about self-realization. But after 13 days, we are back to normal. So this particular aspect is very much important, and this is the point what Brahmana was trying to inquire with Vaidarbhi. So we need to understand that. Now, I thought in this subsection, this is the important shloka. That's what even I mentioned in my presentation. So, api smarasi chatmanam avignata sakam sake hitva mam padam avichan bhauma bhoga rabogataha. The Brahmana continued, my dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. He is repeatedly trying to, as some senior acharyas say, whether you are, it's not that only when you join ISKCON, only when you join ISKCON, you would be knowing that you were having a birth previously, and Super Soul was assisting you and helping you. It's not that only ISKCON devotees know that. But the thing is, anyone, I think this point I really liked from some previous Acharya's commentaries, that Krishna gives opportunity for each and every living entity, whether he is born in India or not. That is even Uganda. Probably you can take Uganda, which is one of the most unknown countries or most unwealthy countries, I should say. Even if you are taking birth there, Krishna gives an opportunity, either in the form of Christianity or in some other, depending on the time, place, circumstances, would give an opportunity to come towards him. So that's what Krishna stresses, and that is true. And again, always a majority of time it is what it happens that we misuse the free will. we misuse the free will, and we try to identify ourselves from a material platform. So we need to. There's nothing wrong in lamenting when someone is going. Lamentation is very natural, and there is nothing wrong about it. But we need to understand that It's a body and it is expected to expire, and to keep it to that. And we are having higher dharma than that. Higher dharma than that. Save pumsam paro dharma yatho bhaktur adhokshage. To understand that the highest dharma is to serve the lordships. Okay, and we need to, our target should be to leave the body in his consciousness, in his remembrance. That's what is being stressed out. I think we have already seen enough examples, not only in Vedas, in our real time also. I think no one would deny with me the leaving of Barsana Rani Mataji. With, I think, most of our devotees, we have seen live on how she left the body, how gloriously she has left the body. In Gachibowli, we all were there. So that's a consciousness we should build on. So that's the point. Now coming to this purport of this particular important shloka. So here in Bhagavad Gita also this is stated the same thing. O Scion of Bharata, Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, O all living entities are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. This is an explanation of how the living entity falls down into this material world. In the spiritual world, there is no duality, nor is there hate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself into many in order to enjoy bliss more and more. The Supreme Lord expands himself into different categories. As mentioned in the Varaha Purana, he expands himself in Vishnu Tattva, the Swamsha expansion, and in his marginal potency, the Vibhinnamsha or the living entity. These expanded living entities are innumerable. Just as the minute molecules of sunshine are innumerable expansions of the sun, the Vibhinnamsha expansions, the marginal potencies of the Lord are the living entities. When the living entity desires to enjoy themselves, they develop a consciousness of the duality and come to hate the service of the Lord. In this way, the living entity fall into the material world. In the Prema Vivarta, it is said, Krishna Bahirmukha Hana Bhoga Vancha Kare, Nikatastha Maya Tare Japatiya Dhare. So the natural position of the living entity is to serve the Lord in a transcendental loving attitude. When the living entity wants to become Krishna himself or imitate Krishna, he falls down into the material world. Since Krishna is the Supreme Father, his affection for the living entity is eternal. When the living entity falls down into material world, the Supreme Lord, through his song of expansion, Paramatma, keeps company with the living entity. In this way, the living entity may someday return back home, back to Godhead. By misusing his independence, the living entity falls down from the service of the Lord and takes a position in this material world as an enjoyer. That is to say, the living entity takes his position within material body. Wanting to take a very exalted position, the living entity instead becomes entangled in a repetition of birth and death. He selects his position as a human being, a demigod, a cat, a dog, a tree, etc. In this way, the living entity selects a body out of the 84 lakh forms and tries to satisfy himself by a variety of material enjoyment. The super soul, however, does not like him to do this. Consequently, the super soul instructs him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord then takes charge of the living entity. But unless the living entity is uncontaminated by material desires, he cannot surrender to the Supreme Lord. At this juncture, Prabhuji and Mataji's, this point, but unless the living entity is uncontaminated by material desires, he cannot surrender to the Supreme Lord. We need to really contemplate on this aspect of how much contaminated we are with material desires. Even in the devotee community, I know it's not an easy, but I'm saying it to myself. Even I'm saying it to myself, like how contaminated we are with the material desires. But somehow we need to make a sincere effort to come out of it. Very sincere effort. And we need to never leave the association of devotees. That at least for me, that's the only hope I have. That's the only hope I have. So it's a very important to be noted. So even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord says, Bhoktaram Yagyatapsam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Gnatva Mam Shanti Vrikshati. The sages, knowing me as ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods and benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. So, very nice point he has conveyed. So, super soul, the Lord then take charges, but unless the living entity uncontaminated. So, material enjoyments, there are some aspects. Last time in the session, what I was having in the Zenith community, one Prabhuji, I was discussing about one point of, animals are burning their negative karma in their body. That's what I told in the session. But somehow one personality was not ready to accept that this point I can't believe. This point I can't believe. That's what he said. But I tried to smoothly say as smoothly as possible to convey the point. But internally, I was thinking, whether you believe it or not, that is true. That's what harshly I was telling to myself. I was above. I was. It was not coming out very harshly, but I was thinking whether his quotation was, "I don't believe in this. That animals are burning karma in their body." But I was stopping myself to say whether you believe it or not, this is the truth. But somehow later I had a conversation with him at a later juncture, and I don't know to what extent he believed. I thought of showing some proofs and all. Whether that depends whether he accepted me my information or not. It will be known in my next session whether he will be coming or not. I'm not sure. So the Supreme Lord is a supreme friend of everyone. However, no one can take advantage of Supreme Friend's instructions while making his own plans to become happy and entangling himself in the modes of material nature. When there is creation, the living entities take on different forms according to the past beginnings. This means that all the species or forms of life are simultaneously created. Darwin's theory stating that no human being existed from the beginning, but that humans evolved after many years is simply nonsensical theory. From Vedic literature, we find that the first creature within the universe is Lord Brahma. Being the most intelligent personality, Lord Brahma could take charge of creating all the variety found within this material world. So very wonderful purport given by Prabhupada. Very, very nice purport. So, yeah. So this was the first subsection, what we have seen. I think we know who is Vaidaravi's husband name. Someone already answered. So now, next section is about, two swans. What are these two swans? Subsection 2 swans wandering in a lake.
Soul and super soul.
Soul and? So soul and?
Super soul.
Super soul. Yeah. Now, Vanilla Mataji has answered this. I mean, whenever I, in the last subsection, what I discussed, I was talking about Shiksha Guru and the instructions. When I really like, I take inspiration from Vanilla Mataji, her follow-ups, her following the instruction of her Shiksha Guru and doing the job very nicely. When sometimes I take inspiration from devotees like Vanilla Mataji. So when service, what are the instructions are given when it is executed, we really see that hang of it, seeing the God or personality. So anyway, this subsection 2 swans wandering, anyway, when Vanilla Mataji has answered. So it is in reference to soul and the super soul. So it is a repeated reminder. So this particular section has approximately how many shlokas? 2 shlokas, I think. Yeah, 55 to 59. So almost we are having 4 to 5 shlokas here in this particular subsection. So among this section 54, 54 sloka, if we see, he further continues. He tells about their past relation. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. So the original home of the living entity and supreme personality of Godhead is the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, both the Lord and the living entities live together very peacefully. Since the living entity remains engaged in the service of the Lord, they both share a blissful life in the spiritual world. However, the living entity wants to enjoy himself, he falls down into the material world. Even while he is in that position, the Lord remains with him as a super soul, his intimate friend. Because of his forgetfulness, the living entity does not know that the Supreme Lord is accompanying him as a super soul. In this way, the living entity remains conditioned in each and every millennium. Although the Lord follows him as a friend, the living entity, because of forgetful material existence, does not recognize him. Yesterday, my kid said, college in my college, no one is there. I'm going to my friend's house and I'll read there. I'll go and read there. Her friend's house is in Jubilee Hills. Her friend house is in Jubilee Hills. But we have created a system. Give your friends mom's number. Give your friends location, Google Map location, and all we have taken, such that always, whether she knows it or not, Supreme Personality knows that he is following
गूगल का यहाँ पे देखो
the living entity.
ऐसे है वो एक पर हम
Let
करेंगे
me mute Usha Mataji.
सॉरी प्रभु जी
Yeah. Usha Mataji, please go on mute now. Thank you. Yeah. So we got so always they might be sincerely reading there. Their exams are going on, so they might be sincerely reading there. But always we overlook her. So even as a well-wisher, we are trying to overlook her. She should have a healthy fear of parents knowing they might come and meet also. Sometimes we do something like this. Who knows? Sometimes we even try to surprise her by going in person there and see what she is doing. The same lines, that's what even Supreme Personality of Godhead Brahmana also was trying to say the same thing, that God remains with him as a super soul. The living entity does not know that Supreme Lord is accompanying him as a super soul. So in this way, living entity remains conditioned in each and every millennium. Although the Lord follows him as a friend, the living entity becomes, because of forgetful material existence, does not recognize him. Okay. So now next one is 55, which I mentioned here. Yeah, this is the important shloka in this section. In this section, I thought it is an important section in this one. Yeah. So here 55 shloka says, Satvam vihaya mama bandho gato grami matirmahim vicharan padam adrakshihi kayachin nirmatim striya. So translation, my dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic. You have become more and more materialistic. It is very true. And not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. So this 54 to 58 shlokas do the same thing. So 55 purport is again a interesting purport by Srila Prabhupada. When the living entity falls down, he goes into the material world, which was created by the external energy of the Lord. This external energy is described herein as some woman or Prakriti. This material world is composed of, some woman is nothing but the Prakriti. You might remember the famous picture where three women with the threads managing the living entity. You can imagine that picture. Those three women are nothing but the modes of material nature: Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So this material world is composed of material elements, ingredients supplied by the Mahat Tattva, the total material energy. The material world created by this external energy becomes the so-called home of the conditioned soul. Within this material world, the conditioned soul accepts different apartments or different bodily forms and then travels about. Sometimes he travels in the higher planetary system and sometimes in the lower systems. Sometimes he travels in higher species of life and sometimes in lower species. He has been wandering within this material world universe since time immemorial, as explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. The living entity wanders into many species of life, but he is fortunate when he once again meets his friend either in person or through his representative. This is what even our Shiksha Guru sometimes quotes, Lilananda also quotes. Sometimes we are so unfortunate to know how fortunate that we got association of the devotees. Actually, it is Krishna who personally advises all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Sometimes he sends his representatives, who delivering Krishna's very message canvases all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment that he does not take the instructions of Krishna or his representatives very seriously. This material tendency is mentioned in this verse as a gramya mati, sense gratification. The word mati, mahim, means within this material world. All living entities within this material world are sensually inclined. Consequently, they become entangled in different types of bodies and suffer the pangs of material existence. Whether you know it or not, Prabhuji and Matajis, when you can contemplate probably at least the devotees who are there in this platform or in this call. When you are in yatra, our mindset. When you are not in yatra, our mindset. You can see visible difference in our consciousness, in our thinking. At least I have seen this in my personal journey. At least when I go to yatra or when I'm in the association of devotees, it is more blissful than anything else. Anything else, to be frank. Yeah, anything else. I don't want to elaborate on that point. So like that. So this is 56. It says, so he is referring to that city as material body. So in that city, in our material body, there are 5 gardens. There are 5 gardens, 9 gates, 1 protector, 3 apartment, 6 families, 5 stores, 5 material elements, 1 woman who is lord of the house. Can anyone guess what are these? What are these 5 gardens? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
24 elements. Panchendriya, Jnanendriyas.
Tell me one by one, Mataji. So 5 gardens are Panchendriyas, right?
Yes, Panchabhutas, I think, Prabhuji.
Panchabhutas. Okay. 9 gates.
9 gates. Eyes, nose.
Yeah, Navarandras. Yeah.
Yeah, Navarandras.
1 protector.
3 apartments. Something.
Let us go one by one. One protector. Who is 1 protector?
1 super soul, Prabhuji.
Super soul. Yeah. 3 apartments.
Force of nature, I think, Prabhuji.
What is it, Mataji?
Tamo guna, Rajo guna.
Yeah. 6 families.
6 families. I don't know, Prabhuji, exactly.
No problem.
6 vices.
5 senses with mind too.
6 vices.
Yes.
Yeah. 5 stores. Anyway, I think everything is described here, but I just wanted to. Bhagavatam means early morning sleep, right? So I was just trying to involve everyone. So yeah, next sloka in the same section talks about, my dear friend, the 5 gardens are the 5 objects of sense enjoyment, and the protector is the life air, not the super soul, Mataji. The protector is the life air, our air, what we breathe, life air, which passes through the 9 gates. The 3 apartments are the chief ingredients. It's not again modes of material nature. These are fire, water, and either earth. 3 apartments. The 6 families are the aggregate total of the mind and 5 senses. Yeah, can someone read this purport?
The 5 senses that acquire knowledge are sight, taste, smell, sound, and touch. And these act through the 9 gates. The 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 nostrils, the genitals, and 1 rectum. These holes are compared to the gates in the walls of the city. The principal ingredients are earth, water, and fire. And the principal actor is the mind, which is controlled by the intelligence buddhi.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is the last sloka in the 5 stores. The 5 stores are the 5 working sensory organs like hands, legs, and all. They transact their business through the combined forces of the 5 elements, which are eternal. Behind all this activity is the soul. The soul is a person and an enjoyer in reality. However, because he is now hidden within the city of the body, he is devoid of the knowledge. Yeah, someone wanted to read this purport, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I will.
Yeah, Mataji, please.
The living entity enters the material creation with the aid of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And thus, his body is formed. Although the living entity is working from within, he is nonetheless unknown. The living entity enters the material creation, but because he is bewildered by the material energy, he appears to be hidden. The bodily conception of life is prominent because of ignorance. Nava buddhyate.
Nava buddhyate.
Intelligence is described in the feminine gender, but owning to her prominence in all activities, she is described in this verse as Adishaha, the controller. The living entity lives by the means of fire, water, and food grains. It is through the combination of these three that the body is manifested. Consequently, the body is called Prakriti, material creation. All the elements gradually combine to form flesh, bone, blood, and so on. All this appears as various apartments. It is said in the Vedas that the digestive food are ultimately divided into 3. The solid portion becomes stool, and the semi-liquid portion turns into flesh. The liquid portion turns yellow and is again divided into 3. One of these liquid portion is called urine. Similarly, the fiery portion is divided into 3, and one is called bone. Out of the 5 elements, fire, water, and food grains are very important. These 3 are mentioned in the previous verse, whereas sky, ether, the air are not mentioned. This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita 13.20. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaramscha Gunamschaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformation and the modes of matter are products of material nature, Prakriti, material nature, and Purusha, the living entity, are eternal. When they both come in contact, they are different reactions and manifestations. All of them should be considered the result of the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. So yeah, the same point. I think all this, the allegorical references, what those items mean, are beautifully explained by Srila Prabhupada here in this purport. And this is going to be our description of the material body. That's what he has compared with all those elements what we discussed. And digested foods are ultimately divided into how many and what are they? I think already it is answered in the purport. So we'll go to the next section, that is entanglement and false identity, false identities. So how once we get into this material pool, how we get entangled and we identify falsely. So bodily identification. And here in this in this section of entanglement and false identities, you only have 2 shlokas, 59 and 60. So in this 59 is this where it talks about entanglement and false identity. The translation goes something like this: my dear friend, when you enter such a body, along with the woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Miserable conditions. Yeah. Can someone read this purport? Yeah, Padma Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
That is 60, no? 60?
59 Mataji. It is 59.
Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah. Oh, you are not able to see my screen, Mataji?
Yeah. I'm reading from the book.
Oh,
is it okay? Is it okay?
Okay, Mataji. Okay.
When a person becomes materially engrossed, he has no capacity to hear about spiritual existence. Forgetfulness of spiritual existence entangles a man more and more in material existence. Such is the result of sinful life. Various bodies are developed with the material ingredients because of different types of sinful activities. King Puranjana assumed the body of a woman, Vaidarbhi, as a result of his sinful activities. Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Striyo Veshyas Tatha Shudraha, that such a body is low-born. If one takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, he can be elevated to the highest perfection, even though he be low-born. One acquires lower births when one's spiritual intelligence is reduced. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madhu. So again, I think he's stressing the point. It's a controversial point, which most of the modern scholars might not agree. I think we have discussed enough on why Srila Prabhupada say Striya, Vaishya, Tadha, Shudra. Three are low-born. I don't want to elaborate here. So let's move on. So this is the important shloka in this subsection. That is, Natvam Vidarbha Duhita Nayam Viraha Suhrit Tava Napatistvam Puranjanya Ruddho Navamukhe Yaya. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor is this man Malayadwaja your well-wishing husband, nor were you the actual husband of Puranjani. You are simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. Very strong, very, very strong statement, Prabhuji and Madhajis, that we need to seriously think about it, you know. Very tough, very tough to swallow, but tough pill to swallow, but it's very true that he is not this man Malayadwaja, nor is this man Malayadwaja your well-wishing husband. No, even your well-wishing personality is not your closest ones as well. That's what it's stressed here. So yeah, let us read the purport. In the material world, many living entities come in contact with one another and increasing their attachment to a particular type of body, become related as a father, husband, mother, wife, etc. It might be just a warning or a precaution. It might be very strong purport here. So let us take it in a right stride. So actually, every living entity is a separate individual being. And it is because of his contact with matter that he comes together with other bodies and becomes falsely related. False bodies create various associations in the name of family, community, society, and nationality. Actually, every living entity is part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the living entities are overly engrossed in the material body. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appears and gives instructions in the form of Bhagavad Gita and Vedic literatures. The Supreme Lord gives this instruction because he is Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of God. Supreme Lord gives this instruction because he is the eternal friend of the living entities. His instructions are important because by them the living entity can obtain liberation from the bodily engagement. As water passes down a river, many straws and grasses are carried away from the shore. These straws and grasses come together in the river's current, but when the waves toss this away, and that they are separated and carried somewhere else. Similarly, the innumerable living entities within this material world are being carried by the waves of material nature. Sometimes the waves bring them together and they form friendship and relative to one another on bodily basis of family, community, nationality. Eventually, they are thrown out of association by the waves of material nature. The process has been going on since the creation of material nature. In this regard, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur sings, Miche Maya Re Vashe, Yacha Bese, Khacha, Habudubu Bhai, Jiva Krishna Dasa E Vishwasa, Karleta Ara Dukha Nai. My dear living entities, you are being carried away by the waves of material nature. Sometimes you are on the surface, sometimes you are being drowned. In this way, your eternal life is being spoiled. If you simply catch hold of Krishna and take shelter of his lotus feet, you will once again get free from the miserable material conditions. In this verse, the word Suhrut, well-wisher, and Tava, your, are very significant. Once a so-called husband, relative, son, father, or whatever cannot actually be a well-wisher. The only well-wisher is Krishna himself, as Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Society, friendship, love, well-wishers are all simply results of being packed in different bodies. One should know this well and try to get out of this bodily engagement into which one is thrown birth after birth. One should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and return home, back to Godhead. So very, very clear. So society, all this friendship, employment, all this, we should not get too much attached to anything. Either it is friend, either it is employment. I have seen a lot of people, they slog in office left, right, and center. They are in a feeling that they are taking care of the company. I have personally seen a lot of people like that. A lot of people like that. They put blood, sweat, and toil hard in offices. And see, I don't mean that we should not work. We should work, but we should draw a line. I mean, I was one among them some time back. I used to slog a lot a couple of years back. So yeah, that gives a sense of achievement, right? When we do slog and they send us to on-site for 2 years, none in the team goes in the on-site. Among the team of 50 members, no one goes in the on-site, and you alone, with this, due to the slogging, you are selected and going to on-site and spend 2 years there, save some good amount, come back. So it gives a sense of very wonderful happiness, and even in the society also we take pride, right? Your son went to UK, your son went to Sweden. So it gives a lot of pride, sense of pride. But all these are temporary. It's like they are compared to the weeds and grass in the flow of a river, which at one, if not now, at some point they would be washed away in the flow of time. So that's what the purport Srila Prabhupada was trying to highlight. So the next section is about Maya and qualitative oneness and difference. So previously we have seen entanglement and false identification, which generally we identify with, but it's very difficult to come out of that identification, but we have to make a sincere attempt of coming out of it. Okay, so this is the subsection where it talks about Maya and qualitative oneness and difference. So here, the slokas 61 to 63 are very, only 3 slokas are there in this section. So that is 61 to 63. So 61 sloka says, sometimes, still further, Brahmana tells Vaidarbhi, sometimes you think yourself a man, sometimes a chaste woman, and sometimes a neutral eunuch. This is all because of the body, which is created by the illusory energy. This illusory energy is my potency, and actually both of us, you and I, are pure spiritual identities. Now just try to understand this, and I'm trying to explain our factual position. Factual position. Someone want to read the purport? Okay, I will read the purport. So the factual position of both Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity is qualitatively one. Qualitatively one. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Spirit, the Super Soul, and the living entity is the individual spiritual soul. Even though both of them are original spiritual identities, the living entity forgets his identity when he comes in contact with material nature and becomes conditioned. At such a time, he identifies himself as a product of the material nature. Because of the material body, he forgets that he is the eternal part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the way Mamaivamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The word Sanatana is found in several places in Bhagavad Gita. Both the Lord and the living entities are Sanatana. And there is also a place known as Sanatana beyond this material nature. The real residence of both the living entity and God is the domain of Sanatana and not this material world. The material world is temporary external energy of the Lord, and the living entity is placed in this material world because he wanted to imitate the position of Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, he tries to enjoy his senses to his best capacity. All the activities of the conditioned soul within this material world are perpetually taking place in different types of bodies. But when the living entity acquires developed consciousness, he should try to rectify his situation and again become a member of the spiritual world. The process by which one can return home back to Godhead is Bhakti Yoga, and sometimes called Sanatana Dharma. Instead of accepting a temporary occupation duty based on the material body, one should take the process of Sanatana Dharma or Bhakti Yoga or so that he can put an end to the perpetual bondage in material bodies and return home back to Godhead. As long as human society works on the basis of false material identification, all the so-called advancements of science and philosophy are simply useless. They only serve to mislead human society. Andha yathandhair upantya manaha. In the material world, the blind simply leads the blind. Okay, so that's what he talks about in 61 and 62 is, my dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality. For we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars who are in knowledge don't find any qualitative difference between you and me. So he's mentioning about the qualitative oneness and the difference here. So anyone wants to read this purport? Okay. So both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity are qualitatively one. There is no factual difference between the two. The Mayavadi philosophers are again and again defeated by the illusory energy because they think that there is no separation between the super soul and the individual soul, or that there is no super soul. They are also misled in thinking that everything is super soul. However, those who are Kavaya, learned scholars, actually know the facts. They don't commit such mistakes. They know that God and individual soul are one in quality, but that the individual souls fall under the clutches of Maya, whereas the super soul, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the controller of Maya. Maya is the creation of Supreme Lord, Maya Shrishta. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the controller of Maya. Although one in quality with the Supreme Lord, the individual soul is under the control of Maya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot distinguish between the controller and controlled. So this is 63, the important one. Yadha Purusha Atmanam Ekam Adarsha Chakshusha Dvidabhi Bhutam Aveksheta Tadhaivantaram Avaya. As a person sees the reflection of his body in a mirror to be one with himself and not different from, whereas other actually see two bodies. So in our material condition, in which the living being is affected and yet not affected, there is a difference between God and the living entity. Can someone say what is the difference between lipta and alipta? Can anyone say the difference between lipta and alipta? I'm just trying to wake you up. If you are, can anyone tell what is the difference between lipta and alipta? Any guesses? Don't worry, right or wrong.
Hare Krishna
Lipta means
Prabhuji.
materially entangled, and alipta means materially unentangled, not entangled.
Materially untangled. Okay. Lipta means?
Entangled.
Entangled, yes. Yes, you're right, Mataji. Thanks for answering that, Mataji. So Alipta here is referred to Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is not, who can't be contaminated with the material stuff. And living entity can be contaminated, that is called Lipta. So that's what is being spoken here. So this is 63. So the purport it goes something like this. It's a pretty big purport. Being affected by the conditioning of a matter, Mayavadi philosophers cannot see the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entity. When the sun is reflected in a pot, the sun knows that there is no difference between himself and the reflected sun in the water. Those in ignorance, however, perceive that there are many small suns reflected in each and every pot. As far as the brilliance is concerned, there is brilliance both in the original sun and in the reflections. But the reflections are small, whereas the original sun is very large. Vaishnava philosophers conclude that the living entity is simply a small sample of original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Qualitatively, God and the living entities are one, but quantitatively, the living entities are small fragments of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is full. And one more example, what can be quoted is about ocean. Ocean is a very big one, but the taste of one drop, second drop, third drop, qualitatively doesn't change. Acharya's quote the example of ocean as well. So the Supreme Lord is full, powerful, and opulent. In the previous verse, the Lord says, my dear friend, you and I are not different. This non-difference refers to qualitative oneness, for it was not necessary for Paramatma, the Supreme Personality, to remind the conditioned soul that he is not one in quantity. So, yeah, this non-difference refers to qualitative oneness. For it was not necessary for the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality, to remind the conditioned soul that he is not one in quantity. The self-realized soul never thinks that he and Supreme Personality of Godhead are one in every aspect, although he and Supreme Personality of Godhead are one in quality. The living entity is prone to forget his spiritual identity, whereas the Supreme Personality never forgets. This is the difference between Lipta and Alipta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally alipta, uncontaminated by the external energy. The conditioned soul, however, being in contact with the material nature, forgets his real identity. Therefore, when he sees himself in the conditioned state, he identifies himself with the body. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, there is no difference between the body and the soul. He is completely soul. He has no material body. Although the super soul, Paramatma, and the individual soul are both within the body, the super soul is devoid of designation, whereas the conditioned soul is designated by his particular type of body. The super soul is called Antaryami and is extensive. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Kshetragnim chapimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharta. Oh, Sion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. So, Kshetra, Kshetragna, I think we have discussed enough. Living entity will be only knowing about his Kshetra. His Kshetra means he will be knowing about his body. But Krishna is the Supreme. He is the Kshetragna. He is the Kshetragna means he is aware of all the bodies of all the living entities. The super soul is present in everybody's body, whereas the individual soul is conditioned in one particular type of the body. The individual soul cannot understand what is taking place in another's body, but the supreme super soul knows very well what is happening in all the bodies. In other words, the super soul is always present in his full spiritual position, whereas the individual soul is prone to forget himself. Nor is the individual soul present everywhere. Generally, in his conditioned state, the individual soul cannot understand his relationship with the super soul, but sometimes when he is free from all the conditional existence, he can see the real difference between the super soul and himself. When the super soul tells the conditioned soul, you and I are the one and the same, it is to remind the conditioned soul of his spiritual identity as being qualitatively one. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Yathol Mukad Visphulingad Dhumad Vapi Swa Sambhavat Api Atmatvena Bhimatat Yata Gni Prathak Ulmakat. Fire has different features. There is flame, the spark, and the smoke. Although these are one in quality, there is still a difference between the fire, flame, spark, and smoke. The living entity becomes conditioned, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is different because he does not become conditioned at any point. In the Vedas, it is stated, Atma Tatha Pruthak Drishta Bhagavan Brahma Samjita. Atma is the individual soul as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of everything. Although both are spirit, there is always a difference in the Smriti. There is always a difference. In the Smriti, it is also said, Yatagne Kshudra Visfulinga Vyucharanti. Just as spark manifests in the large fire, similarly, the small individual souls are present in the big spiritual flame. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshva avasthita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So we have to take this in a right sense. Although all living beings are resting in him, as small fiery sparks rest on the large flame, both are differently situated. Similarly, in the Vishnu Purana, it is said, Eka deshe sthitasyagnir josna vistarini yadha parasya brahmana shaktis tadedham Akhilam Jagat. Fire is situated in one place, but it distributes heat and light. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is distributing his energies in different ways. The living entity is but one of these energies, marginal energy. The energy and the energetic are the one in one sense, but they are differently situated as energy and energetic. Similarly, the Satchidananda form confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, is different from the from that of the living entity in both his conditioned and liberated states. Only atheists consider the living entity and the personality of Godhead equal in all respects. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Mayavadi Bhasya Suhile Haya Sarva Nasha. If one follows the instruction of Mayavadi philosophers, believes that Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual souls are one, his understanding of real philosophy is forever doomed. Coming to the last section is about revival. So revival, importance of spiritual master and common man understanding. And so 64 is an important stroke. I think we are in the fag end where he completes it, saying this, in this way both swans live together in the heart. When the one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. Who can read this last purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, shall I?
Yeah, please, Mataji.
Yes. Purport. Here it is clearly stated, Hamno Hamsena Pati Bodhitaha. The individual soul and the super soul are both compared to swans, Hamsa, because they are white or contaminated. One swan, however, is superior and is the instructor of other. When the inferior swan is separated from the other swan, he is attracted to material enjoyment. This is the cause of his fall down. When he hears the instructions of other swan, he understands his real position and is again revived to his original consciousness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna comes down, avatara, to deliver his devotees and kill the demons. He also gives his sublime instructions in the form of Bhagavad Gita. The individual soul has to understand his position by the grace of Lord and the spiritual master, because the text of Bhagavad Gita cannot be understood simply by academic qualifications. One has to learn Bhagavad Gita from the realized soul. Tat viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from his submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Thus, one has to select a bona fide spiritual master and become enlightened to his original consciousness. In this way, the individual soul can understand that he is always subordinate to the super soul. As soon as he declines to remain subordinate and tries to become an enjoyer, he begins his material conditioning. When he abandons this spirit of being an individual owner or enjoyer, he becomes situated in his liberated state. The word swasatha means situated in the one's original position is very significant in this verse. When one gives up his unwanted attitude of superiority, he comes situated in his original position. The word tat vyabhicharena is also significant, for it indicates that when one is separated from the God due to disobedience, his real sense is lost. Again, by the grace of Krishna and Guru, he can be properly situated in his liberated position. These verses are spoken by Sri Lilananda Muni, and his purpose in speaking them is to revive our consciousness. Although the living entity and the super soul are one in quality, the individual soul has to pursue the instruction of the super soul. That is the state of liberation. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mataji. So this is how he ends. Brahmana ends, and again here again they come back to the original conversation between Prachin Barahi and Narada. So Narada tells here, my dear King Prachin Barahi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is celebrated to be known indirectly. Thus, I have described the story of Puranjana to you. Actually, it is an instrument for self-realization. Purport by His Divine Grace, Bhakti Vedanta Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. There are many similar stories in Puranas for self-realization. As stated in the Vedas, Paroksha Priya Ivahi Deva. There are many stories in the Puranas that are intended to interest the ordinary men in transcendental subjects. But actually, these refer to the real facts. They are not to be considered stories without a transcendental purpose. Some of them refer to real historic facts. One should be interested. However, in the real purport of the story, indirect instruction is quickly understandable for a common man. Factually, the path of Bhakti Yoga is the path of hearing directly about the pastimes of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. But those who are not interested in hearing directly about the activities of Lord, or one who cannot understand them, can very effectively hear such stories and fables as this one is narrated by Narada Muni. Narada Muni, yeah. This ends this chapter of Puranjana. So we stop our session here. So I think, yeah. So anyone has any reflections, any thoughts? Welcome. I think we have read each and every shloka today. As Lavish Prabhu has shown his mercy on me, giving limited shlokas in a single session. So it was nice to read each purport completely. Yeah. So that's it. Prabhujis and Matajis, thank you very much for joining this session. And it was really a good experience for me, knowing the story about Puranjana. And I think I should become more serious in the instructions of Guru. Take more seriously and see how best we can be more serious in this spiritual journey. So,
Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. And sorry, Prabhuji.
No
Thank
problem.
you
No
very
problem.
much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.